Hey, thanks for joining. You did it. Nice job. Introducing our project management trainer, speaker, author, and coach to thousands of professionals and organizations worldwide, including NASA, the U.S. Air Force, USACE, U.S. Army, the Department of Transportation, the FBI. Your friend, Phil. Over to you, Phil.
My awesome project managers, welcome. It's another week. It's another time for you to blow the lid off your prep. It's another time for you to ace the exam. Those of you taking the exam this week. So welcome. Let me start by saying if you've got any questions, ask them, because I'm not just here to show you a bunch of slides or information. I want to help answer your questions. So now's the time. Look for the chat box somewhere, the live chat box, and ask your questions right now. But for today, I want to keep you on the straight and narrow. I know many of you are studying for the exam. You want to get it off your plate, but you need a little bit of direction. You heard what Chris said to you. Take those mock exams. But some of you aren't even ready to take the mock exams. So I want to spend a little bit of time very rapidly combing through what I think you need to know across the different chapters. So let's start off by talking about integration. And I'm going to go process by process and show you what I think you guys need to be mastering process by process. So we'll do this for a few minutes and I'll put you back into a live session, pre-recorded. But develop project charter is the first thing we think about in integration. So in initiating within integration, you have developed project charter. In my mind, you need to understand your project charter and, of course, your assumption log. But don't forget, you also need to understand what exactly you're meeting about. So we talk about meetings and we talk about facilitation techniques. You got to remember those as well. Okay, when we talk about develop project management plan, in my mind, what you should be thinking about here is especially outputs from other processes. That's one. Outputs from other processes is something to focus on. And at the same time, you also want to think about meetings, because meetings is talked about here. So outputs from other processes and meetings. Now, do you know why I'm asking you to think about meetings here? I'm asking you to think about meetings because this is where we talk about kickoff meetings. All right. So this is develop project charter. This is develop project management plan. Okay. Just to give you some idea of how we're going. In executing, you need to understand WPD, WPI, nope, not WPI just yet, I beg your pardon, change requests, issue log, and deliverables. Because you know this is direct to manage project work. So if these topics are not making sense to you, it tells me you need to go back to drawing board, okay? And you need to understand your lessons learned register. You also need to understand your knowledge management and your information management. Okay. Now, I know this is a little bit of a different view. You're so used to seeing processes. I'll give you some processes. I know you want to see some processes. That's fine. Let me give you a few processes here just to make it make sense for you. So let's put a process or two here to make it make more sense. So this is DPC, obviously. DPC, develop project charter. DPMP, develop project management plan. The first part here is direct to manage project work. The next part here is manage project knowledge. And we move into monitoring and controlling. Do you have any questions so far about any of this stuff that I've put in here for you to master? Because what I'm looking at is knowledge area by knowledge area, okay? Take them one at a time and go for these big ticket items that I'm calling out. These big ticket items are very important for you to master the knowledge area. There's a lot more, but these are big ticket items. Speaking of big ticket items, there were a few other things I should have mentioned in DPC, and those actually precede the project charter, and that is the business case, the benefits management plan. In other words, just read from page 30 forward, page 30 to the end of the section where they talk about the benefits management plan. Okay, monitoring and controlling, we have monitor and control project work. In monitor and control project work performance reports is important. You also see WPI coming into this, so it is also important. And the whole topic of your cost forecasts and your schedule forecasts coming into this process. Have you guys ever taken note of this? You have cost forecasts, you have schedule forecasts, and they're both coming in uniquely into this process. You do not see them anywhere else. I see some of our friends here. Unfortunately, I don't have my specs, so I'm going to have to squint a little bit. I see Zahid, and I see Ali. How you guys doing? I hope you guys are doing well. And I don't think I put in any link just yet. I think that was the previous session. So right now, I'm just showing you guys things that you absolutely need to master. Ali, I hope you got my email. I sent you the email about 10-20 minutes ago. So Ali, do you have any questions? Because your email alluded to the chat not working, and I think you were talking about the power review. So if you have any questions about what you're looking at on the power review on Vimeo, you can actually ask me here, and that will be a good time to ask me any questions that you have about your studying on Vimeo, okay? Good. All right, so that's monitoring and controlling, cost forecast, schedule forecast, and the next one here is perform integrated change control, PICC. And what I need you to know here is understand what performance reports coming in, understand change requests only appear here, right? Change requests coming into PICC, and also understand the change log. There are many things here actually. The change log, understand the approved change request, all right? And also, you got to understand change control tools as far as the tools and techniques are concerned, and understand why these things, WPR, why is it coming in here, change request, you know, and then change log, it's coming out, approved change request. These are topics that you need to master to sufficiently control this knowledge area on the exam. Last but not least, we have the close-in process group. And as it maps to integration, what I would have you guys master here, close project or phase, basically you need to understand the definition of this thing, right? Let me give you the pages, because I know for a lot of you, you think you've studied close project or phase. You think you've studied it, but you ain't. All right, so in your favorite book, 4.7, there are some key pages that you guys actually need to focus on. One of our other students a few days ago, Vidya, asked a question, and I am going to be posting her question because it's very good. It's about procurement, mapping back to closing, and wondering why, you know, and I answer that question. But I need you to focus on page 123, especially, and understand the contents of page 123. So for me, it's a lot of it is about the definition in this at this particular time here. If you understand the definitions of close, project, or phase, that is the beginning of mastery of closing, because you know closing is just one process. So this definition of close, project, or phase, and all of those itemized bullets and how it juxtaposes or interrelates with procurement, that is going to help you on your exam, okay? So you first of all need to close procurements, right? Before you close a phase. But remember, you also need to close phases before you close the project. So understanding that dynamic and how things work. Procurements closed first, and then close project or phase as a catch-all, okay? For what you didn't close, claims that are still open. So the definition is very important. All right, you need to understand how the project charter is an input to close project or phase. You also need to understand regression analysis as a tool and technique of close project or phase. And very importantly, you need to understand the lessons learned register and the lessons learned repository and how they interrelate. And last but not least, you also need to understand OPA updates. All right? And that is my brain dump for you for 25% of your exam. That's right. 25% of your PMP exam, in my estimation, is from integration. Integration is so heavy. People don't know. These bad boys right here, these ones, these are massive chunks of your exam. But you know what's even scarier? This one right here, like on your current exam, this is a much beefier chunk. I'm going to make it really large so that you can focus on it. And I'll tell you why. Close project or phase, this is 7% of your exam. Really. Like when you think about what closing is, just think about 7% right there. Okay. When you think about develop project charter, think about 6.5% right there. Okay. When you think about develop project management plan, to be conservative, I would say, all right, think about 2% in my estimation. Okay. Some people would say it's 1, but no, it touches so many things that I think in economies of scale, this is bigger than the other planning processes. DPMW, in my estimation of things, this is about 3.5 or 3.3%. Let's say 3.3, 3.1 actually, 3.1%. Managed project knowledge, 3.1%. MCPW, 2.5%. And 2.5%, roughly. You add them all up, you get 5, 6, that's 11, that's 18, that's 20, that's even 26.5. So, I mean, integration could be crazy. Now, I gave DMPW 1 more percent because in retrospect, I think this is a very significant part of planning. And I think it's kind of underrated, even at 2%. I think you need to be aware of this a lot more. And here's why. On page 89, you've got all your project management plan components, right? But a lot of focus is paid to numbers 1 to 10 or 1 to 11, whatever that is. Let's open up page 89. It's 1 to 10. 1 to 10 is the focus. People forget 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, all the way down to 18. So remember, components 11 to 18. What do you have here? Things like your change management plan, things like your configuration management plan. And you know, for these, I would say watch Phil's video on YouTube. Just do a YouTube search for configuration management versus change management. So those of you, my pilot students who are watching this, I asked you to watch the video. Did you watch the video? Did you watch it or not? I hope you did. I hope you did. And I hope this is a good memory jogger for you, because a lot of you ain't even started. And you've got your exam coming up next week. You haven't started digesting page 89 properly. You need to digest page 89, okay? So I want to encourage you to digest page 89. Digest it. It's going to help you, all right? So that's integration. But really rapidly, let me just go through a few of the other areas that I want you guys to really master. Next knowledge area that we're going to talk about is scope. So let's create a scope section here. Scope. So there's nothing in initiating in scope, but we have plan scope management, and I'll just use abbreviations. You guys should know the abbreviations now, because that's how I roll with the abbreviations, right? Plan scope management. Then we have collect requirements, define scope, create WBS, and then here we have validate scope and control scope. So let's break these down quick. This will be the last set I do. As you can see, it does take time to put some of these thoughts together. So let's view them one by one. Let me zoom in here. All right. So let's start off with plan scope management. Of course, you need to master the EDM tools and techniques. What do I mean by that? Expert judgment, data analysis, meetings. Understand that across your triple constraints: schedule, cost, and scope. Now, if you don't know what these EDM things are, you need to go look that up. All right. Your scope management plan and your requirements management plan. Make sure you master those. Going into collect requirements, all your requirements, tools and techniques, interviews, focus groups, questionnaires, surveys, prototypes, all that stuff, you got to master it. Your RTM, your requirements traceability matrix, your requirements documentation, those need to be mastered sufficiently well. Define scope. This is one where you really need to get the definition down. And those of you who were in the class, you remember I told you, this is not your place to put assumptions and constraints. No, it was incorrectly stated in the PMBOK guide. I told the PMI to correct it. They have corrected it in subsequent editions. Some of the old editions still have it, but do not be confused. Assumptions and constraints are revalidated in defined scope, but they do not live in the project scope statement. So you got to know your definition of the process. You got to understand the project scope statement. Excuse me. Project scope statement, you need to understand what it is. And you also need to understand why I said understand the definition. There's something such as product analysis used here. It's unique to define scope. But do you know what it is? Do you also know that defined scope is where you do the final requirements selection? There's a place in the PMBOK guide that is talked about. I have pointed that out on this channel many times. Go hunt for it in the PMBOK guide. Create WBS, the scope baseline, the composition, rolling wave planning. These are all topics that you need to have command over. Okay? Absolute command over. Because you will find these in your exam. Other terms, your planning package, work package, control accounts, code of accounts. These are things you cannot compromise in your prep, my friends. These all need to be gotten down pat. You could encounter these on your exam, okay? Very easily, if I might add. Going to validate scope, you need to understand the PMBOK guide mainline, okay? Go Google PMBOK guide mainline. That is a flow in the PMBOK guide that covers the major things and how things flow from develop project charter all the way to close project or phase by going through the most important aspects of the mainline. I call it mainline. If you haven't studied that, you need to, okay? I hope these topics are ringing a bell for you. So understand the PMBOK guide mainline. You also need to remember the input to this is verified deliverables. You also need to understand the inspection tool and technique. Also, decision making is used because the team on the side of the customer could vote as far as whether something is approved or not. I'm sorry, it's going out of focus. There we go. Okay. So understand the PMBOK guide mainline, invalidate scope, understand verified deliverables, inspection, understand your decision-making tool and technique, and understand accepted deliverables and how these become an input to close project or phase. In control scope, you got to remember your trend analysis, your variance analysis, and you got to understand the definition. Okay? Now, let me just put a blanket statement here. Let me put a blanket statement here. The blanket statement is this. And let's put this above, just so we don't forget. Okay. Read. Gonna put this in red. It's very important. Trust me. When I put something in red, you want to pay attention. Pay attention to what I'm telling you, my friends. Read all definitions of processes, and this is important, the key benefits and the extended descriptions. What do I mean by extended descriptions? Let's break for a second and talk about this. What I mean by extended descriptions in this book can be exemplified by following me to any of these processes. Let's go to manage quality, page 288. All right. So page 288, manage quality, it says manage quality is, it gives you the breakdown, blah, blah, blah. Then it says the key benefits of this process. Those are the key benefits I'm talking about. And then what else happens? It goes to the extended description on page 289. It then says manage quality is sometimes called quality assurance. And then it goes on and on and on. That stuff is fair game on your exam. So you gotta borrow into page 289, borrow into page 290, where it says the managed quality process implements a set of planned systematic acts, and it goes on and on and on. But do you know that's gold? If you don't know the extended definitions, you could get questions wrong. So the extended definitions of processes, that's gold for you on your test. It's not enough to know the inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs. You know, some people even cram them, which I think is not needed. I think that's overkill. You don't have to cram them. You got to know them. You got to understand the key tools and techniques. You got to understand the key principles of the process, where things are used, how they're used, but then you need the extended definition for many of these. Let me show you another one here. If you go to chapter 5, you go to define scope. Let me show you the same thing in define scope. It's also visible in this one. 5.3. 5.3. Go to page 150. So page 150, that's where the dialogue starts. And then it goes on to the key benefits. And then, boom, it just slams you into page 151. And all of this stuff that is not apparent is coming out of the woodworks of the PMBOK guide. Let's read. It says, since all the requirements identified in collect requirements may not be included in the project, what? You mean all those requirements may not be included? How was I to know that? You made me think collect requirements is where we collect all the requirements that are going into the project. But no, they are telling you here, the defined scope process selects the final project requirements. Do you see what I mean by extended definitions? So if you don't know the extended definitions, you're only getting half of the message. And that could be harmful on your exam. And that's why I put this note here, read all definitions, key benefits, extended descriptions, and review all the process data flows. You know, every one of those 49 processes has got a data flow. You know that? So I expect you guys to be looking at those data flows and trying to put sense, into your studying of the PMBOK guide. It's not enough to just read blindly. No. You really need to know the detail and how it all maps together. All right? So we're almost done. Almost. Trend analysis, variance analysis, and what else? Yes, so the definition. That's what made me stop there. The definition of control scope. Terms such as gold plating. It's good to know. The concept of it. It's not in the PMBOK guide. Scope creep. So gold plating is a child of scope creep. Scope creep is adding extras that have not been through the performing a grade change control process. Speaking of which, up here in performing a grade change control, I just remembered, of course, your CCB. You also need your CCB on the radar. All right? So I hope you can see it all now. That's it. So that's scope. And in scope, my estimation of the planning processes, I would put each of these at 1% apiece. So these are all 1% apiece, pretty much. So 1%, 1%, just to give you some context. So what is 1% of your exam? 2 questions, roughly. 2 questions. You also need to remember that some questions are going to combine knowledge areas. Okay? Validate scope is similar to these, 2.5% for validate scope and 2.5% for control scope. That is how I would estimate the exam. Pretty much two or 3 questions, maybe blended questions. That's my estimation. This is not from the PMI. This is based on my studying this stuff. All right, my friends. Well, there you've got it. Integration and scope broken down for you. And you see, it takes time to do this. I have spent going to 30 minutes just showing you what to expect on your exam. It takes time to break this stuff down. That's why I tell people, why don't you just come to my classes? Why don't you just go to pmsucceed.com, sign up for my most recent class? It's going to help you. Whether you're studying for the current exam, whether you're studying for the future one happening in July, that course is the bomb. You want to be on that course, my friends. All right. Well, I hope that gave you some context of what you know, what you don't know. You can see it takes time to talk about this stuff. So we're going to continue this some other time, but that was just scope and integration for you. Okay? I'm going to put you back, dunk you back in if you ain't got no questions for me. But if you do have questions, now would be a good time to ask them. Has anybody got any questions about any topic in the PMBOK guide? Anything relating to the PMP exam? Anything you are unclear about? Going once. Ali, I've not received from you your questions. Because Ali, I thought you had questions. No questions? Zahid, questions? I thought you guys had questions for me. If you don't have questions, I will very happily dunk you back into a session on integration, because I think that will help you since I have spoken about integration today. Don't you think? Let's put you into a 2.5-hour session for integration. I'll give it 1 more minute and see if there are any questions, and if there are none, integration, here we come. Anyone taking the pilot exam? It's scary, but this week, tomorrow, it starts on the 10th. Some of my students are taking the exam in the next week. I need to whip them into shape this weekend with a mock exam. We're going to be taking a mock exam. Those of you on the course I promised you, you'll be experiencing some agile fun. I know you can't wait. You're looking forward to it, aren't you? Yes, you are. All right. Well, let's dunk you into integration management. Accept their questions. Let me check one more time. Check the queue. Ali says, it is not easy for me, but I'm trying. I'm sorry to hear that it's not easy, Ali. What's up? Is it the work? Is it work? Work is very intense, or explain to me what the problems are. Maybe I can give you some advice. Can I give you any advice? Offer any help in any way? Is it just a time schedule for you to study, Ali, or is it some of the content? Is the content making sense? Can I direct you to some other sources that may be of help to you? You know, for those who say the content isn't making sense, I often tell them maybe you should go to the CDC website, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. They've got a very robust portal that has a lot of examples from the PMBOK guide context, examples of schedules, of the project charter, of the project management plan, and all that stuff. So if it's that, maybe those can help you, Ali. Or is it something else? I need to take the exam after 2 months. So tell me what's not easy, Ali. Let me help you. Let me give you some advice. What is the problem? You're working as a project manager. Welcome to the story of my life. I work 18-hour days sometimes. It's crazy. I know what it means to be a project manager. But what I can suggest for you, Ali, is first of all, you need rest. Use time as much as possible to get some good rest. And when you have the ability to study, just focus on putting quality time to study. There's no point studying when you don't have energy or focus. Now tell me, Ali, why do you need to take it in 2 months? Why? Because March, April, May, are you ruling out June? Or is the PMI telling you must take the exam by your cutoff date? Is it your cutoff date, Ali? Is it your cutoff date? Let me show you what I would advise. And do me a favor, Ali. Send me a reminder, and there's a schedule that I think might help you. Because if you're looking at the big mountain of PMP stuff you need to read, it's very easy to get inundated and to get scared and confused by it. But if you break it down into manageable chunks, it is less intimidating. It is not as bad if you break it down into little chunks. I would suggest milestones, incremental, milestones, achievement targets as you study. Instead of trying to study everything within a week, maybe you need to break it down into smaller increments, and every tiny little increment is a win. Tiny little increments is a win. It is possible. It is possible. So I cannot find my schedule, but let's see. No, that's not it. Let me see if I've got another example of it. I just want you to get the concept of what I'm talking about. You have to treat your PMP exam journey like a project. And a project has to be broken down into tiny little chunks. Okay, there you go. So, Ali, you know what you need to do? Tiny little chunks. Monday, integration. Tuesday, scope. And you study what you can from it. But, Ali, I don't know if you have checked out our system, because our system helps you break it down. And I know you've checked out Vimeo, but maybe you need to go to our full-blown online 35-hour course. I know 35 hours sounds a little bit daunting, but I think this will help you. Let me explain. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If you break it down like this, you'll be able to study bit by bit. You see, I'm going to show you how you can study section by section using our system. So let me zoom in here. On this system, you can see we have each chapter segmented out. But let me show you, when you get to the knowledge areas, every knowledge area in our system is broken out section by section. There's the introduction. There's another introduction to concepts, trends, and tailoring. And there is Develop Project Charter. One video, just one video. Let me open it up. Just one video. That's it. Just one video. And you can watch this video. You see it's 11 minutes. And at least you got one of the 49 off your plate. You open up the PMBOK guide. You study along. You make sure you understand the content. And then you're done with Develop Project Charter. You go back to the list. You study Develop Project Management Plan. Open it up. Study it. That's 6.5 minutes. Study that. Go back. Go to Direct and Manage Project Work. Again, you're opening up your PMBOK guide. You're going through. This is 10 minutes. And by the time you're done with everything, you take a quiz. You take our integration management quiz there. You quiz yourself. And you find out where you stand. And if you didn't pass it, you go back and close the gaps. You take it again. You move to the next chapter. But you got to give yourself these tiny little milestones. You see, we got tiny, tiny little milestones. Tiny, tiny little. But every milestone leads you to the goal. You do that for all the chapters. All the chapters. And then you get to the Code of Ethics. You take a 1-hour mock exam. After you've taken all those other quizzes for all the chapters, then you take the 4-hour mock exam, study Agile Basics, and at least you're seeing the end of the tunnel. You see? We even have some live training samplers here. You know, we have some of the sessions that you see online. They're here as samplers for you to further reinforce chapters 1, 2, and 3. So there's a lot of value in doing things in incremental chunks. Sometimes we just need a system to help us. And if you're not using a system to break it down into tiny pieces, it's very easy to feel overwhelmed. So I understand where you're coming from, and I feel sorry, but I think you really need to break it down into tinier chunks. Have you been for a 35-hour course in the past, or any PMP? I'm talking about one that really prepares you, not the Power Review. Power Review is, you gotta have been for a course to tackle Power Review. It's very quick, like 6 hours, 4 hours. It's very quick. So I don't know if you've been for training for like PMP. If you haven't, I want to encourage you to. Okay. Oh, I see you have sent in the email. Thank you. I will not reveal that to anyone, but I will copy it. And I will endeavor to send you, I want to send this to you right now, Ali, so that you are no longer at a loss of what to do. So let's see. Here we go. So I'm going to send you this schedule sheet, and this is going to help you in your studying, just to set some milestones. You really need those milestones. Okay, let's see. Okay, let me give you a little idea about what this is now that I've found the sheet, and you can see what I was talking about earlier. All right, and I will be I'll just forward this to you, and you know, doctor this up, tailor it to meet your needs, Ali. Okay, tailor this to meet your needs. And Gmail is notorious for sending my emails to spam. So please check your spam, okay? Timetable. And let me show you. You're going to have to make some tweaks here because this is a little bit dated, but it is exactly what I was talking about. So you can see, this is how I break down studying. I think our students should tackle, you see, day by day, 2 days for introduction, 2 days for chapter 2, you know, and I put in here what I need you guys to do as far as studying, and just go through the content bit by bit, you know. Substitute what you don't have. If there are quizzes that you don't have, substitute them with others, but step by step, bit by bit. If you don't break it down, it is going to be overwhelming. And that's why a lot of people just come for my live classes, because they know I do the heavy lifting for them. I do all the heavy lifting. I keep you grounded. I keep you centered. I keep you focused. All right. So I just send that to you, Ali. I hope that helps you. Okay. And I wish you all the very best in your prep. All right. I am going to dunk you back into a section on integration. Let's go. Come on, Phil, say something.
All right. I hope you're enjoying the class so far. Now it's time to go deeper into the PMBOK Guide dregs. That's what I call it, the PMBOK Guide dregs. That's right. We are currently on Develop Project, the very first process in the PMBOK Guide. Now, if you look behind me, you see stuff that you might recognize, maybe from the world, maybe from what you've heard about the PMBOK Guide. But we got to go deeper into this stuff. So why don't you follow me to chapter 4 to Develop Project Charter. Come on, follow along, open up the book, whatever's left of it, that is. Now let's go to 4.1. I want to show you a few things in 4.1, okay? Now, before you get to 4.1, follow me to page 71, because I want to talk about the two perspectives to the PMBOK Guide. There are two perspectives to the PMBOK Guide processes. Every one of the 49 processes has two perspectives to it. The first perspective is pretty much what you see behind me, and that is from page 71 and section 4.1 on page 71. You see it's broken out in section 4.1 through 4.7, but 4.1, you see the following things behind me, don't you? Take a look at them. Business case, you see that? Agreements, enterprise environmental factors, and organizational process assets. You see that? That is in the very first box. Then the tools and techniques, you can see behind me, expert judgment, data gathering, interpersonal and team skills, and meetings. You see that right here, all this stuff right here. That is a high-level view of this process. Now, last but not least, you can take a look at that side. You'll see the project charter and the assumption log. You see that stuff? That is the high-level view. Now, for every process, there are two views, high-level view, low-level view. In the introduction to each process, I'm just going to be telling you casually what each of these things is at a high level.